Welcome back, everyone. It's been a long time since I posted a video. I apologize. I hoped my warnings that once summer rolled around, well, once nicer weather rolled around, well, once racing season started, because it ain't that nice out lately around here. It's been chilly, and I think most of you in the Midwest know it's been pretty cool. I am, for one, just sick and tired of wearing 20 layers of clothing just to go for a bike ride, but whatever. Take what we can get, I suppose. You'd think that just because it's cooler out, I would have had more time inside to work on the layout. Unfortunately, it is the racing season, so I'm in full swing with that, and between training and races and stuff like that, I haven't had a ton of time down here. And then when I do have time, I'm frankly just tired. But first things first, it is Memorial Day weekend, and despite the fact that everyone believes that it's a extended weekend just to barbecue, let's remember what we're really here for and why we get tomorrow. In this case, I'm recording on Sunday, so tomorrow will be Memorial Day. But let's just take a moment to remember why we have tomorrow off. Remember our veterans, both living and deceased, who have taken their time and their lives to sacrifice for our country. I think we need to remember what Memorial Day is all about. So just a moment to remember him. My dad in particular, he's still alive, thankfully, but he did serve, so thanks, Dad. Thanks for the day off. So the Gondola project that I started didn't really turn out like I hoped it would. I had a segment recorded that kind of went through. I did some weathering with some weathering salt, or some sea salt weathering, and I'm going to show that. I'll splice it in and show a little bit of what I did there. It's okay. This is a little bit of a foreshadowing, if you will. I don't know if that's the right term, but you know, this is the end result. It looks okay. I rushed it. Because I've been so time strapped, I rushed to try and get this thing done and get a video posted. So I didn't let the glue or the water dry when I applied the sea salt, and then when I painted it, you could see that it kind of ran a little bit, and then I over-watered down the paint. It was just it was a bad day. I was rushing to try and get a video shot and get something posted. In the process, I kind of blew this project. However, I don't want you guys to give up hope for trying this. I personally think that it's a really good technique. It's a great idea. Randy Gelb, your idea with the tin can, you know, to be able to take a A&W tin can and frankly turn it into this, I really think it turned out well in terms of, you know, the bowed sides and the dents and everything. My paint job and everything, if you can, you know, kind of zoom in a little bit on it, it just isn't the best. It didn't turn out as well as I'd hoped, you know, and you know, it's okay. Definitely not horrible, but definitely not the greatest thing in the world either. So again, it was somewhat of an experiment of multiple things, you know, between the tin can and the sea salt weathering and stuff like that. So I think it's still going to make its way onto my layout. Just as in a really rough shape, it might be a maintenance of way. I've got the scrap load in that I made from a few videos ago. You know, so it looks okay, you know, for what it is. So as for today, though, I was trying to get back down into the swing of things, and like I said, because I've been so busy, I haven't had a ton of time to do much of anything, and so long projects right now I've kind of shelved for once the weather cools off or I have more time on my hands. The racing season ends in July, beginning of July, so once racing season's over, then my weekends free up a little bit again. So for now, I thought I'd get back to the diorama that I had started. Now, there's some parts of the diorama that you're going to have to just use your imagination with. I don't have a lot of time right now to cut the fascia that I want on the side of it, and I would like to stain a pine or oak or a nice board to set the whole thing on, and then again the plexiglass, and that'll probably come in a later episode or video, because I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, to do that. But I figure I'll do some static grass. I thought I'd apply some telegraph poles. You know, they're not really used anymore, but they still line many main lines throughout the country, and they definitely were once part of the railroad scene, so you'll still see them. And then I thought I have some ties that I cut when I was hand laying my switches, and if I just stain those black and with the light stain, and then try and put those throughout the scene just to make it look like they were replaced recently. So flip over to the workbench and get started on that. Okay, so if you remember, this is the diorama that I had started, and just kind of getting these are some of the rock molds that I made in a previous video. And I thought I'd just kind of place them around, and then I'll blend in, you know, with some clump foliage and some static grass. And I don't want to go with static grass everywhere. I thought I'd just do, you know, kind of areas of static grass, and then maybe some taller grass in there, some clump foliage, some, you know, just some lichen with some ground foam on it, things like that. So one of the things that I'd started doing is, like I said, I was going to put some telegraph poles on, and you can see these have developed somewhat of a natural bend, and that's not too uncommon out in the real world. You'll see these things from years of being the weight of the wires, you know, start pulling them over, and they're just in a sad state. So basically what they started life as is, these are old, I think either Lifelike or Bachmann. I got them with a set of stuff when I was a kid, and they've just been around for ages. So what I thought I'd do is I'd trim them down to just have the one crossbar on them, you know, and you could even cut some of these off, you know, because they're made of glass generally. I don't know if I have any here anymore. I used to have one, and but they're made of glass, and so when these would fall or they just shatter over time, people would steal them or whatever. So you could simulate that by breaking one off. And then what I thought I'd do is using my wheel wash. It's just a grayish black color. I would just kind of stain the actual pole itself, just to give it a weathered appearance. So what I did was to rough it up a bit, I took the sanding stick that I got just recently and just trimmed these off, cut them off, and then kind of just roughed it up by going over a few times, just, you know, just to take away the factory sheen on it. And so I'll demonstrate on this one. So I started by cutting the end of it off. And the nice thing about this is it gives it a little bit of a point, so when you go to plant it, you'll be able to, it'll press in real easy. And then I just trimmed off. These are the new Xuron spruce shears, so they're real good at cutting plastic, and definitely don't want to, oh, piece goes flying. Definitely don't want to cut any metal with these. They're not meant for that. They're meant for plastic. Now I know Rick's Products makes a line of telegraph poles, telephone poles, and the nice thing about theirs is that the cross beams are not pre-applied. You apply them. So if you've got some of those, it'd work out really well, because then you wouldn't have to trim them off and sand them. However, in my case, I've got these older ones, and since this is a diorama, I'm kind of just, you know, using what I've got in the parts bin. There we go. That's just what I was going after. And then we'll take some of this wheel stain that I've been using. Like I said, this is just a mixture of black, and it's watered down. I used I think 50% water, and then grimy black, and then maybe some rail tie brown in here. So it just gives it a muddy black color. So then what I have too is my wife questioned me when I first bought these because she doesn't use them. They're cosmetic sponges. But what these are good for is just you get them moist with paint, and then you can dab, and it'll give a good textured effect. And but what I like to do with them also is if you just get some paint on here. And I don't know if that'll show up, but it gives it enough of a, it's not really painting it, it's not really staining it, it's just putting a darker hue onto the pole itself. So I'll do that with the next one here. So I just got enough paint onto the sponge itself. And there you go. It just, like I said, it takes away some of the brown stock color and gives it a little bit of a gray color. And you can do the same with the cross members as well. Just to dull them up a little bit, and then when you need a little more paint, just go ahead and take a little more. Gives them a little bit of a weathered look to them. So I'm going to do a few more of those, and then we'll flip over to some scenery. Okay, it's time for a little static grass, and first thing I think I'm going to do though is just glue down these rock molds, rock castings. In general, I've always just used a little bit of wood glue. That seems to hold them down pretty well. So I got that in there. Now I'm just going to come back with, like I said, with some static grass. So just kind of decide where I want to put it, and then apply it. I'm trying to decide how I want to put the glue on though. I don't know if I want to use standard method. Well, guess I'll just get dirty. Okay, now that I've sufficiently gotten myself messy, there is the glue. Now we'll come back and apply some static grass to this. Let's get the tools out of the way. Okay, so there's some static grass, and we'll let that dry. Now the beauty is, once I'm done with this, or once the glue is dried, I can just take this, flip it over, kind of shake off the loose ground that I don't want anymore. So for now though, I think I'll just go ahead and kind of size up our, go ahead and, as I was thinking about applying these telephone poles, I find it kind of funny, because what's the one thing you don't want when you're out rail fanning is telegraph poles or telephone poles in your shots. They just seem to mess things up, and here I am in a diorama that I'm going to be using for pictures. I'm putting telegraph poles in. So oh well, I can always shoot from this side. Any angle is good for on a diorama, so I don't have to worry about that too much. So just putting a little bit of glue on them just to hold them in place, and you know, if they're, like I said, if they're canted a little bit, you might have to explain to someone why they're crooked, but we know as model railroaders that it's not uncommon for these poles to sometimes end up cockamamie to what you're used to seeing. Now, I would like to come back ultimately with some telegraph line even. The string that I have at the moment though really is a little bit too heavy, but I thought I'd just talk about that briefly. If you do a string telegraph pole, especially on older lines, remember that the line has a tendency to stretch over time. The weight of the wire, the age, if any of the wire is snapped, it'll start to sag. You know, as these start to lean in, the poles start to lean in themselves. So you don't want your line to be real tight between the poles. You definitely want to have a little bit of droop. You'll never see power line, you know, pulled taut between. And I don't know for sure, but I'm going to assume that that also has to do with safety, so when these poles move in the wind there is some flex and that the wire doesn't stretch and snap. So just something to think about when you're stretching your line across your poles, telegraph poles here. So okay, so I think the next step now will be some clump foliage here, get it interspersed with this stuff, and then maybe some ties and things like that. Alright, so lucked out. I have, from an older layout, I have some foliage left that I didn't use and didn't want to throw out, and so I just saved it. And it's already got, basically it's just lichen with a little bit of ground foam on it, but it works perfectly just to represent shrubs and things like that. So the old adage of don't throw anything out, you never know, you could use it somewhere. Don't know if you can hear my kids in the background, but they've recently discovered the Animaniacs. For those of you not familiar, it's a goofy cartoon by the Warner Brothers. It's actually pretty funny and it's quite educational. Quite a few of the songs that they sing in there. They have the President's song, they have the States and the Capitol song, they have the Countries of the World song. You know, so it's funny to hear them singing the Countries of the World song, because without knowing it, they're learning the countries of the world. And in this day and age, you can't get enough of that stuff. So there's definitely some goofy non-educational stuff mixed in, but they do a great job mixing in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So now I want to apply some just rock and stuff. I've got, I think I've mentioned in previous videos, I have some decomposed granite that I've had. So I'm just using the end of a Q-tip, inexpensive Q-tip. I cut it off. And since I don't have a nozzle on my applicator, my wood glue anymore, this will just have to do. I'm just trying to. Well, there she is. You know, like I said, I've got definitely got some stuff that needs to be finished. You would like to get a fascia around this portion of the diorama to just kind of finish it off, make it look a little bit cleaner, and you know, put a base plate down that it could sit on, put some plexiglass around it. But ultimately, this is what I was going for. You know, just something to give your models. Like I said, as you know, my username on YouTube is Chessy Fan. The 2 is actually because one of the first websites that I signed up for, there was already a Chessy Fan, and instead of going Chessy Fan also, I just did Chessy Fan 2, as in I'm also a Chessy fan. So the Chessy system has long been one of my favorite railroads. It was one of the first engines my dad ever bought me when I was a kid. Was U30B from Thurn. I still have it, but this is an Atlas GP9, I believe it is. one of the very first engines or the first run of their GP9s. But anyway, a small history on that. So it doesn't fit with my era anymore, but I love the chassis system paint scheme. It's one of my favorites, always will be. And then the Rock Island hopper that I made. So that's the diorama in a nutshell. Nothing special, standard scenery techniques, but just something to show off your models maybe. Well, that's it for today. Like I said, the gondola didn't turn out exactly like I hoped it would. It was a fun experiment though. Definitely something I'm going to try again. I don't know if I'll record it. Maybe I'll record the end result if it turns out better. But definitely, you know, the diorama is still a little bit of a work in progress. Like I said, I would like to come back with the fascia and a base plate and the plexiglass. But with the time that I have, I really wanted to get a video up. I just, you know, haven't had the time to do any long projects, but I thought, yeah, let's get down there, let's shoot something, let's get something on YouTube. I've gotten a lot of new subscribers. I wanted to make sure that they didn't wonder what they subscribed for. I haven't uploaded anything in a while, so hopefully this will satisfy for the time being, and I can't promise when the next video will be, but I'll try and get something up again as soon as I can. So thanks very much for subscribing. Thanks for sticking with me for the video, and I will see you next time.